About a year ago, I went on a week-long vacation to London. It was my first time ever traveling to the United Kingdom, and probably my first time traveling overseas in close to 3 years at that point. It was a lot of fun and everything, but I'm not just here to share my vacation stories. No, I have a point to make, because out of all the places I wanted to visit while I was there, and of all the places I did visit, the one place I was more excited to go than anywhere else was a little place called Crystal Palace Park. Crystal Palace Park is a park situated in the southeast of London, and while I of course enjoyed the nice walk and uncharacteristically forgiving English weather during my trip, the main draw was, of course, the dinosaurs. But what? You don't immediately recognize these things as dinosaurs? Well, why not? I mean, they just look so unmistakably like our modern perception of dinosaurs, it's really quite hard to picture them as anything else. Everyone knows from the fossil record that Megalosaurus was a giant quadrupedal lizard that pretty much looked like an elephant and a crocodile got into a teleportation accident and fused together. Oh, and of course we can't forget about Iguanodon. Anyone who is anyone will tell you that it looked pretty much exactly the same as Megalosaurus, just with a horn on its nose that's totally not actually its thumb. Yeah, so jokes aside, these are wildly outdated and pretty laughable from a scientific point of view by today's standards. So why did I still enjoy myself? I mean, aside from the obvious of these still being very impressive works of art, and by God, if you ever get to see them in the flesh, or clay and cement I should say, you'll be surprised by how big they actually are. But beyond all that, why do these weird, outdated dinosaurs have such a powerful allure? This video will be jumping off from a similar-ish video by a creator by the name of Hoops and Dino Man, who also made a video discussing the powerful and atmospheric nature of old dinosaur artwork and depictions, and while that video is now several years old, I still thought it was worth making my own video in a similar vein as theirs, because I've got my own things to say about why old dinosaur art appeals to me personally, and that is one simple point that I kind of took a while to figure out, but now I finally have, and I'm ready to share it with all of you. Simply put, old dinosaur art fascinates me because it's history recording history. When you look at, say, this old Charles Knight painting of a Stegosaurus, you're not just looking at a picture of a dinosaur. You're seeing history and prehistory colliding. What we have here is an over century-old depiction of a creature that lived many millions of centuries before that. It's a window into the past in more ways than one. These old paintings, these structures, these obsolete mounts of skeletons in museums, they're just as much anthropological now as they were paleontological back then. They currently have next to no value to modern science as it relates to paleontology. I mean, my God, what the hell even are half of these things supposed to be at this point? But it does give us an interesting view of how human society and human culture viewed the prehistoric world back in the time periods they were created. Seeing this old mount of these Annata Titans, which to my knowledge is still on display in this configuration at the American Museum of Natural History, doesn't just make me think of the skin that once clung to the bones from which these fossils are derived, it makes me think of the people who mounted those fossils. They're dead. It makes me think of all the people who have viewed these skeletons over the years. A lot of them are dead too. Old paleo art is alluring because it's fascinating to get a glimpse of a different era in human history, albeit a comparatively quite recent one, but still distant enough that it resonates with you on some level. Or me, I should say. The late 19th century and the early 20th century are eras in human history I have a deep fascination with. Everything from the architecture, to the fashion, to the technology, to just the general mystique of it all. It's just recent enough that you still feel a faint level of connection with it, but also just distant enough that we're still able to feel quite distant from it at the same time. Maybe how I view, how they viewed the primordial world is just an extension of this fascination. And the fact that it happens to coincide with one of my great loves in this world, that being dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals, is just a happy coincidence. So yeah, obviously these crazy Victorian depictions of dinosaurs like Iguanodon and Megalosaurus are of little use to modern scientists aside from maybe just an example of how the field of paleontology is constantly evolving and how sometimes just guessing might not yield the best results, but it's still necessary and sometimes just what you gotta do in order to get anywhere. But I still value them more from an artistic and anthropological point of view because seeing how people generations before me viewed and studied extinct organisms, and how wildly they vary from now to then, is fun to me. This is pretty much the opposite of why I get so much out of modern paleo art. That works for me not because it's adding layers of mystery and intrigue to these animals, but because it's stripping away those layers. Modern paleo art, particularly the more photorealistic stuff, resonates with me because it helps ground these creatures and remind us that they were really just animals at the end of the day, not otherworldly monsters. Vintage dinosaur art does the exact opposite. Whether intentional or not, it didn't ground or animalize the prehistoric organisms it depicts. It mythologized them, turned them into these great beasts right out of Greek mythology. An old tail-dragging theropod and a multi-headed hydra sort of go hand in hand if you ask me, and I'm sorry, paleo bros, but that's cool to me. And that added fact that we're essentially here in the present viewing history's view of history is just the icing on the cake. I don't really have much more to say about this. Vintage dinosaur artwork is just very striking to me, capturing not only my love of history, but prehistory too. It all comes together in one glorious orb of scientific mysticism that I can't quite properly articulate, but hopefully this video represents my best attempt to do just that. I really wanted to get my opinion out about it because I felt it was unique and worth sharing. Was it really? Well, that's for you to decide. So while you hopefully go down to the comments and do just that, I'll just say, for now, thank you for watching, have a great day, and until next time, see ya.